Okay. Good morning, honorable members, our entity and our stakeholders.
Morning, Chair.
Morning. Can we start the meeting, Secretary?
We can proceed, Chair. We are a quorum.
Okay, we are a quorum. Thank you very much. I just want to welcome everybody in the meeting without wasting time. The opening remarks are not going to take us anywhere, but just to say everybody is welcome. And I also appreciate for members and also our stakeholders and our entity to be present with us. I hope we will be patient to one another and also explain everything, and we are not going to leave no stone unturned. So with those few remarks that I'm making, I wish to again once more say I welcome everybody. Who is in the platform, Secretary? Is the DM or the... But let me give you so that you can put forward the apologies. Let's go to the next item, Ariko. Just flag the agenda.
There we go. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so do I start with the apologies? Let me start with the apologies, Chair.
Yes, usually you start with the apologies and then follow with the agenda, and then we will adopt and accept simultaneously.
Okay, Chair. We've received the following apologies, Chair, from the Minister of Electricity and Energy, Honorable Ramakgopa, who, due to pre-arranged G20 engagements, is unable to attend the meeting this morning, Chair, as well as the acting DG Chair is attending G20 meetings. But the Department of Electricity and Energy will be led by Dr. Bugwandan. So those are the apologies received, Chair. Nothing from the members. So those are the apologies, Chair. Then what we're going to deal with today, Chair, is a briefing by Eskom on their first quarterly performance report for 25-26. And then we'll also consider and adopt last week's minutes, Chair. Those are the items that we will be dealing with. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Secretary. Can I then get the acceptance of the apologies, and also the member should also adopt the agenda as proposed? Any other member?
Move to adopt, Chair. Honorable Thring.
Honorable Thring, thank you very much. Honorable Maile.
Thank you, Chair. I move to adopt both the agenda and the apologies, Chair.
Thank you. The apologies have been accepted by Honorable Thring, and the adoption of the agenda by Honorable Thring, and then they were seconded by Honorable Maile. Thank you very much. Let's move with speed. No DM whatsoever that is present. And now we'll definitely go to Eskom. From the department, is there anyone who has been delegated to lead the team?
Good morning, Chairperson. Honorable Chairperson, good morning, honorable members and colleagues. Chairperson, I'm Kubeshni Bagwande, and I will be representing the department. As Honorable Ariko Kotze has mentioned, the Minister and the ADG is at the G20. And Eskom will be now presenting their Q1, Q2 performance. I also just want to explain that last week on the financials, the department also presented the Q1, Q2 performance of all state-owned entities. And on the financials, we presented the management results, and Eskom is still undergoing the audit review and will make the final financial results available at the end of this month. So with that, Honorable Chairperson, I'd like to then hand over to the CEO of Eskom, Dan Marukane, to take us through the Q1, Q2 performance. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kubeshni. Can we give over then to CEO?
Thank you very much, Chair, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. Good morning. Chair, I also would like to place on record the apology from Dr. Untitled, our Chairperson, who is unable to join today. It's also related to the B20 processes that are ongoing at the moment. I will lead the team, accompanied by the Group Chief Financial Officer, Khalid Kasim, here, and I also have a number of the group executives on board. We have Ms. Agnes Mlambo, the Group Executive for the Distribution Business with us. We have Ms. Nontogozo Hadebe, the Group Executive for Strategy and Sustainability, Eskom, and the Group Executive for Corporate Services, Ms. Poshia Gomezulu. I think Becky Zondo, Becky Numalo, our Group Executive for Generation, is online as well, joining us from a different location, Chair. So this is a team that will assist in delivering these results that are up to Q2. And Chair, we really, just moved on and included the Q2 results as the DDG indicated, because they were shown to the committee last time. We are going through a process internally to publicly make them in detail available, and so we'll request some indulgence in the space. And so let me start off, Chair, and I'll touch 3 slides, and then the colleagues will come in and deal with the others. This first slide, that deals with really reflecting on
Just before that, Menir, can we request that you have introduced them, which we appreciate, but whoever is going to present, because in the gadget it's saying Eskom team, so you won't know who's speaking now. But if a person is going to say something or present, she or he must introduce himself or herself and also switch on the video so that we can see, and then switch off again for the network and also assessment. So you can continue. Now you have introduced yourself, and I think we saw you in a team.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I look younger as I took all my hair on the face. Thanks, Chair. Chair, just to capture the slide that really reflects on the progress over time, and I think it's important that we look at this within the context of the period when the current board came on board, excuse the pun, and why that's important, Chair, is because next week, Friday, the current Eskom board will have its final meeting in its current setup, and the new board term will begin at the beginning of December. And hence, we thought it appropriate that as we bring this current board term to a closure, that we really contextualize some of the progress that has been made, and also indicate and focus on some areas that need attention under the 3 key pillars of the strategy thus far. That's been really focused on operational improvements, financial improvements, and the sustainability of the business. So if you look at the operational aspects, Chair, the year to date, we've had 4 days of load shedding. This is the incidents that happened in April, May, and we now look at in context the great progress that's been made from the period when the board started off, where we had the intensity picking up at 329 days. We've had an average of 62% year to date of EAF that's comparable to the 58 in the period before. And I think we're now beginning to also show some uptick in the delivery of kilometers of transmission lines that's on track to be delivered this year compared to the slowdown that we have had in 2018. We have, as we said before, capacitated ourselves to deliver strategy at the executive level, and we're at full speed to really implement the business strategy as we had set out and signed off with our shareholder. Financially, our performance is positive. We sit at the point now where our profit after tax at the September level estimate is significantly higher than at the same period back in 2022 when this board began its progress. 25 in comparison to a 4 billion number. The EBITDA levels are also quite high, as indicated here at 68 versus the 37 we've seen in September 2022. And as we report every week Friday, significant reduction in the consumption of diesel. And this is on the back of the improved performance of our generation fleet. And Becky will touch on this, that as we sit now, we're really managing our fleet by having to put some of our stations on cold reserve because we have excess capacity for power generation. We are also happy, Chair, that the performance of the business operationally, financially, has also contributed to an overall view of the country's credit rating, as we now have seen recently the improvements in rating from S&P. So this is something that we are very aware that our bad performance has affected the country before, and our good performance will also assist the country in moving in a positive direction. From a sustainability perspective, the NTCSA is legally unbundled. The NTCSA has got a new chief executive. The leadership team has been enhanced there. The board there is working to really get the operational aspects of building towards the requirements of the ERA within the 5-year period as we go through. So we'll see.
Recording in progress.
We'll see the establishment of the necessary structures in line with the guidelines and alignment to the shareholder as we prove around this aspect. Equally important is the establishment of a renewables unit, and in this space, our board has recently taken decisions to support the strategic approach that we need to deal with in as far as the funding approaches that involves public-private partnerships that will accompany the execution of our strategy in the renewables business with a very clear energy pipeline, and will in due course make some key milestones around the operationalization of this unit. We do see an improvement in the media space, customers and lender sentiments. We are not where we need to be. This I need to accept that there's a lot of work that we still need to do in as far as ensuring that our customer sentiment is much more improved from where we are. Just last week Friday, we as a board governance and strategy committee, we've approved the strategy of reigniting connectivity with our customers at all levels, and Agnes' team is now poised to do some changes in the space to ensure that we can attend to customer centricity at a much more closer level with the adoption of technology in various aspects and data analytics to reduce this. And this is really our focus area, improving and driving customer centricity. We have also addressed this committee previously on addressing load reduction and electricity losses, and our continued aspiration of driving a high performance, high ethical culture within the business. Financially, we have to reduce the cost within the business, and our core program, cost optimization and revenue enhancement, is at the center of this. We have clearly set ourselves a target of 102 billion over the current corporate plan window of 5 years. And our teams are hard at work to really engineer out costs out of the business, because this is the only way we'll survive, in a space of single-digit tariff increases going forward. The Munich debt challenge, we've addressed this committee before around it. We have said that if this is not resolved, it runs the risks of undoing the important and positive work done by the National Treasury's intervention when it came to Eskom debt relief program. We are very pleased, Chair, that in the MTBF last week, the Minister of Finance has now taken this issue of the distribution agency agreements to the next level. We have piloted this sufficiently in several municipalities, and we are quite comfortable that we have learned the lessons to accelerate the positive impact that can come out of the collaborative interactions with the municipality to reduce the growth of their debts and therefore increase the revenue that we collect from them, and also in the process us assisting them to improve the quality of service to the customers in the areas of service, but also to capacitate the human capital to enable the municipalities to be able to carry the services themselves going forward. Chair, I just want to remind the committee that the resolution of the Munich debt is a critical component of determining and establishing the requirements for unbundling distribution business, which is the next business we need to unbundle. And for that purpose, the solvency and liquidity tests that are required as per company law will only be achievable if we are able to resolve and find a solution for this Munich debt. So it's quite urgent for us that we really deal with this issue, other than the fact that it is posing a exigence risk for us from a financial perspective. And of course, on a financial perspective, we are focusing on unbundling tariff structure. This is very important because it starts setting the long-term tariff trajectory, bringing about certainty, predictability, and it's also something that is also important to enable the reforms that we want to see in the electricity sector taking place, because the unbundled tariff is also of equal importance to all new players who need to come and do investments in this area. From a sustainability point of view, we do accept that with the progress that we have made with regards to availability of electricity, the challenge for us is to turn towards providing it at affordable and reliable levels. So the aspects of load reductions, the quality of the electricity we provide, but also the cost associated with that. And the ministry, as the minister has already indicated, the exercise that he will lead and is leading in as far as reviewing the whole approach of electricity pricing. And we are very ready and already preparing ourselves for engagement in that aspect with our own contributions, and to see how we respond to protecting the poor, protecting the consumers in general, protecting industries of interest, and ensuring sustainability of the utility going forward. That this is a triangle that we need to solve. And we are also doubling up on our efforts within research and development for clean energy technologies. These technologies are important because they allow us options around how we transition responsibly, and ensure that we do not bring around unintended disruptions to the socio-economic conditions of the areas within which we operate today. And we are very aware that coming out of the multiple engagements, both at the energy workstream level of the G20, but also broadly, we expect that the theme will be the same, of countries following differentiated pathways towards transition from an energy perspective, and taking into considerations their own local dynamics and socio-economic conditions to do the scale and pace appropriately. And so the R&D efforts in that space is an important tool for us to go through. And lastly, it's about embedding the new business models for generation distribution. NTCSA is already driving down those ones and completing the legal separation. So if I can go to the next slides, Chair, that deals with the Q2 performance overall. The performance to date shows sustained improvements in as far as the key matrices are concerned. As I said, from an EAF performance, we continue to show progress in that area. We have had good additions of capacity with the Ubet Unit 1 outage completed, with all the necessary regulatory tests that were following the NNR licensing of the extensions. And we've also had the approval of Unit 2 of Ubet life extension by a further 20 years, also granted, recently. So we are really sitting in a much more better position from firm capacity, firm clean capacity that will assist us deal with the baseload requirements for the country. Most of our operational KPIs are showing an improvement, a gradual, positive trend. There are some risks and some targets that are at risk of not being achieved, and this are receiving management attention and the board's attention. It is important, and this is why we do these regular reviews to really take stock of where we are, what are the headwinds coming through, and how do we do course corrections and tax adjustments to move towards our desired state. So from a financial perspective, very strong positive results. Caleb will touch on those. The areas that are requiring interventions, Nontokozo will talk about them in as far as how we are dealing with those within the various business units. I think what is important coming out of the Minister of Finance statements last week is a rapid coordinated effort in rolling out engagements on a DAA perspective, so we can have some meaningful reduction in the municipality debt reduction program. That for us is a very single and big point for us to focus on. Caleb, I think having covered some of the comments that are in the next slide that deals with where we are operationally and financially and year to date EFs, I'm very happy that we can essentially move from this slide to then deal with the slide that shows the dashboard, to show the dashboard that Nontokozo Khadebe, our Group Executive for Strategy and Sustainability Chair, will lead the conversation there. Thanks, Nontokozo.
Thank you, GCE. Good morning, Chair, and the members of the committee and the colleagues. It is Nontokozo Khadebe now speaking. I will just follow on from what Jen has. Oh, okay. I will just follow on from what the GC has really covered in his initial slides, really. This is the entire key performance indicators that are included in the shareholder compact. Most of them have been already discussed by Dan in his opening remarks. Suffice to say that at Q2, as indicated, the performance is really looking good, particularly compared to the previous year. Yes, we have met about 61% of our targets. At Q2, I think we ended the year last year at 64. But when we look at the year-end projections for some of the targets that are currently below where we would like them to be, there is going to be improvement at the back of the interventions that we are implementing. So we're quite confident that we may reach 75% and above by year-end, depending on the outcomes of the interventions that are being implemented. The areas that remain a bit of a challenge, even if when we look at the year-end, is the EAF. Suffice to say that the current capacity availability is quite strong in terms of the system. The environmental indicators, like we have indicated, the particulate emissions as well as water consumptions. There are indeed areas of interventions, the retrofit, which extend to a period of 18 months, some of them, which will then give us a long-term sustainability around achieving the environmental indicators. We do have some delays in terms of the new capacity, particularly from the battery energy storage interventions or projects that we are implementing, but the construction is already on board, so we will wrap them up. It might not necessarily be this year. We have spoken about the municipal debt, and we're going to discuss it in detail as well in the later slides on the interventions that are being done. The timely resolution of fraud cases, it's also an area that is a bit of a concern on our side, projecting to the year end, but there's quite a lot of work that is being done to set up the systems and to execute the case, and also collaborating with other external stakeholders like SAPS as well as SIU in solving these fraud cases, because some of them extend beyond the company itself. Their local content, definitely we've done even better than the previous year, but there are interventions in place as well to meet the target that we have set ourselves, including the discussions as well as other parties on the exemptions for some of the PFMA requirements that will allow us to go a bit further in terms of local content. There are areas where we committed, like the copper recycling plant establishment, which is part of the repurposing initiatives as part of our JET strategy in Komati. Into the project, then there are regulations that are required to strip the copper from the decommissioned plant. So it's something that we cannot do and finish this year. We're going through the process to get those approvals. But as indicated, it is definitely strong performance for Q2, backed by the interventions, and our board structures are sitting on the oversight of how we are dealing with the interventions at this point in time. You can move to the next slide. Yes, I have summarized some of the interventions as we're going through the slide. The generation team really continues to implement the improvements, executing the initiatives around the reliability and sustainability. I've seen a trip reduction program working in most of the plants, which is why we've also seen the incremental increase in the EAF, even though we are not touching 65% as yet. I have also spoken to the emissions retrofits project over the next 18 months, and the resolution of fraud cases where we've really looked at the resourcing of the unit and also collaborating with other parties in terms of the forensic staff, but also as well as a closed monitoring of the criminal proceedings, and also the establishment of a dedicated project management office in this instance. We can move to the next slide. This is really the summary of the key divisions and subsidiaries in terms of their performance and how they are looking like compared between Q1 and Q2. You would have seen there's quite a significant improvement, probably with the exception of the distribution side, where there has been, well, we say it's a deterioration, but it's an underperformance compared to where we were on Q1. Having said that, though, most of those indicators are already within a target. For example, the SID and SIFI, we've already met, we've achieved Q2, but we've seen just a bit of a regress in how we are currently performing compared to Q1. That is all on my side. Thanks.
So the next session, Chair, will be led by Becky Ngumalo, our Group Executive for Generation Business. Over to you, Becky. Speaking on the line.
Yeah. Good morning, Chair and the committee members. Thanks, Dan. I will just summarize this one slide for the committee in terms of the performance, which talks to what Nontozo was talking to. Chair, on the graph on the left-hand side, it just shows the diesel on financial years in terms of how many days per, if you start from 23 when we started. Remember that the committee will recall that in financial year 24 was the highest with the cost corresponding to that, close to 34 billion. And then now we would see that last year we only had 13 days, then 175 hours. And now this year we only had 26 hours year to date. And of load shedding as well that was happening in the country. So you would see that the diesel usage as well has dropped quite significantly, even for the past, since we started, since June up to now, we've been using very minimum diesel, which will also add to the bottom line. Although now the risk, we are in the rainy seasons, so it comes with a different dynamics, but we have now so far still managing based on the plans and the lessons we've took from last year. Then on the right-hand side, the graph there just represent the UCLF in terms of where we were, coming from as high as 16.5 to around 8. So there's about 8 gigawatt reduction on that, so which then also give us that leverage. You see that this year in winter we had that Medupi coming in, so which is good. I think the group chief executive spoke about Quebec and this Medupi 4 now and Kusile 6, which were not there last year when we went into the summer. Obviously, some of the units are being taken for normal maintenance, but with Quebec in now as part of our units to mitigate against heavy rains, it's already on full load. I think we are in a much better position this year than we were last year. We continue to execute. One of the key issues I always say to the team, because everyone is saying the EAF should be increasing, but we are still doing a mid-term emission point, that second last bullet there. These projects are abnormal, on a normal 80-day outages, this goes to 150, 160. So the focus is still there, that the stations like Letabo, Krail, Mata, where we still need to do these emission projects. We've seen the benefit now on the units that we've done, hence Nontokozo was talking about compliance. So the critical thing is not to chase only the EAF, it's also to use the opportunity to ensure that we continue to do what is right. We've got the space now. This is a maintenance window that we will continue to use. I think then that's about it from this side. I think the rest of the indicators really on the technical performance are correct. We will see as we come out of this maintenance window that started in September. By end of March as well, we should also prepare us better for the next financial year. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Becky. Chair, the remainder of the presentation will be covered by Group Chief Financial Officer, Caleb Kasim, and I would like to hand over to him now. Caleb.
Thank you, Dan. Good morning to the honourable members. Chair, if I go through the slides and I will pull off my camera. From a financial perspective, if we look at Q2 and as indicated earlier, the better performance operationally is reflected in the financial numbers. But the second contributing factor is obviously on the revenue side, the 12.7% tariff contributes to the revenue growth of 4% up from FY Q2 number of 184 billion to 191.3 billion. The price increase and the revenue contribution is softened by the lower sales volumes of 3%, particularly with regard to the domestic local sales. A large contributing factor of that has been the industrials, and especially in the ferrochrome industry, as a number of those organizations have shut down their furnaces to do maintenance while commodity prices are not in their favor. However, we do see as a positive on the sales that the regional demand has increased, and that has then contributed to some positive sales from an external perspective. But overall, our net sales reduction of some 3% compared to the previous 6-month window. That combination, and including that the primary energy cost of production dropped slightly by about 1 billion rand Q2 on Q2 to 78.4 billion rand, and linked to the better operational performance. Well, what I just want to highlight on the fuel levy, members will recall when we produced our year-end results, we had the cumulative rebate of the 9.2 billion, plus we had a provision that was reversed, which gave us a credit benefit on the income statement of some 12 billion. What I'm highlighting here, honorable members, that in this performance of the 6-month results, the cumulative amount of rebate due to Eskom is 1 billion rand for the first 6 months, linked to the amount of diesel we have spent. So what we are saying here, that the financial results for the 6 months, and then obviously this will then flow through the year-end projections. When we do release that, you will see that the financial results is done and driven by the performance operation. Yes, the tariffs do contribute, and we saw also the benefit coming through, and you will see in a later slide on our finance costs being reduced on the back of the debt relief. But the key here is Eskom has done well from a profitability perspective, with EBITDA up 11% and the EBITDA margin sitting for the first 6 months at 35.7%, resulting in that profit before tax. And these are unreviewed audited numbers of 33.7 billion as at September 2025. And then if we compare it to profit after tax, we're looking at 25.9 billion. I just like to highlight to the members that because of the seasonality of our business, Eskom, on the back of one, we have higher sales volumes during the winter season, and also the tariffs are higher because of the winter tariffs coming through. So you would see the seasonality in our numbers, that Eskom makes better profits in the first 2 quarters compared to Q3 and Q4. So there will be a deterioration of this profit as we go through the rest of the year, because volumes decrease with the summer period, as well as the change to summer tariffs, which are lowered in winter. Just to highlight that. But the key message here is we've achieved a profit, and we don't see a significant contribution coming from that diesel rebate. And importantly, here, the idea is to minimize the use of diesel, as Becky has indicated in the earlier slide. If we move on to the next one. So I have presented this when we did the year-end results and in previous committees, but just to reiterate that where we find ourselves from a financial sustainability perspective. Number one, the benefit coming through in the debt relief from government is clearly evident in how we're reducing the debt on the balance sheet. That is also contributing to the lower finance costs coming through. Importantly, it allows us to look at releasing 3 years capital expenditure and maintenance expenditure to do what is required from an operational performance perspective, so that the assets can deliver what is required. So that is critical in the catalyst to allowing Eskom to deliver the turnaround that we have seen. So where we are in terms of the debt relief program for this financial year, honorable members, there's 80 billion of debt relief will come through by the end of FY26, and then it's a 2-year gap with the last 10 billion that will be in FY28-29. And the importance of this is that you will see in the next slide, the cash that we have in our balance sheet, we use that to fund all our capital expenditure. As part of the debt relief, the condition is Eskom should not approach the capital markets for new borrowings, so we can strengthen the balance sheet. We've spoken about the revenue and tariffs. yes, we accept the key issue around affordability of tariffs. And that is why, in terms of our corporate plan going forward, we are looking at single-digit increases. But also, as the industry is changing, we need to deal with the unbundling of the tariff to give the correct signals to respective customers and stakeholders. As part of our own cost efficiencies, the corporate plan currently has 50 billion, and as indicated earlier, the board has asked us to increase that cost efficiencies over the next 5 years to some 112 billion rand that we need to extract out of the base to contribute to lowering the cost of producing electricity. We must do it in a way that operations are still maintained. But importantly, the one that is of concern to us is the growing municipal debt, and I'll touch on that in a later slide. But we need all four of these components to work at the same time for Eskom to be in a financially sustainable position going forward, with the objective of not going back to government for further interventions. Because cumulatively, today's over at the end of this debt relief window of 230 billion, the total sum of what we received over the last, say, 10 years would add up to some 480 billion of support for Eskom. If we go on to the slide, thank you. And then just touching again the unreviewed numbers as at quarter two. If we look at quarter one as well as quarter two, compared to our budgets, we've done better on the revenue side, as well as savings on primary energy and operating costs. And I've mentioned the benefit coming through in terms of our finance costs, because what we see coming through and deleveraging our balance sheet, we see savings on finance costs. So as I mentioned earlier, we do make the profits in the first half of the year, and then we do erode some of those in quarter two and quarter three and quarter four, based on the seasonality of our business. Just again to highlight here that municipal debt at the end of quarter two sitting at 105 billion, which remains a key concern to us, and we need to address that issue in terms of the key other pillar in terms of our financial sustainability. If we go on to the next slide, just touching on the financial position, as at the end of September, you will see that the cash has improved compared to quarter one, sitting at 64 billion rand, appreciating that as I've mentioned, that cash is used to pay for your capital expenditure. The only borrowings that we are raising during the financial year, as per the debt relief conditions, is those that existed, facilities that existed at the start of the debt relief program, which we are currently drawing down on. And for FY26, those DFIs which we will draw down will total about 4 billion rand in the financial year. If we go to the next slide, and this is our key concern. You know, when we look at National Treasury's initiative around improving and incentivizing the municipalities to pay their current accounts, we're seeing around 9 municipalities that out of the 71 that are complying in terms of the National Treasury program. And that is why we welcome the minister's announcement around the distribution agency agreement, that we need to work hand in hand with the municipalities to arrest the situation. So helping them in the form of their processes, billing processes, in terms of credit management process, assisting in terms of the maintenance of their infrastructure, ultimately, and in dealing with also leakages in terms of losses, to improve their performance, what they collect from their customers, that they can then also increase those payment levels to what is due to Eskom. As I've indicated in the release of the annual results, if this is not arrested, it will nullify the benefits we forecast from the debt relief program in improving the financial position of Eskom going forward. So key concern and needs the necessary support and attention, not only from an electricity perspective, honorable members, but also all the other services that municipalities supply to their customer base. We go on to the next slide, just reiterating that in terms of our 3-year audit recovery plan, we're in the second year now. We're focusing on that in dealing with the audit findings, but it's not only about the audit findings, it's about improving the control environment. And as you've highlighted in the audit report, the weaknesses around internal controls, we have a focus on that. And in terms of particular procurement, supply chain, and contract management, we are dealing with that with the support of some external services as well, ultimately to strengthen the control environment in controlling and making sure the necessary stewardship of our assets, and also in terms of the amount of cash that Eskom is dealing with in terms of payments and in terms of revenues that we are collecting from our customer base. So to conclude in our last slide, that the 3 key areas that, as Nontoko has said, we need to increase the amount of target I met in terms of the shareholder compact compared to that 61% where we're sitting at the end of Q2 and the interventions that are in place. Continue with the stability in terms of our operational performance and the financial performance, and build on what was released at the end of March 2025. And number 3, which is the critical one, we now need to really focus our attention on addressing the municipal and the metro debt in conjunction with utilizing the distribution agency agreement. Thank you, GCE.
Thank you, Caleb. Chair, this essentially concludes the presentation from our side this morning, and I would like to hand back to yourself, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Siwo. Let me refer the presentation to the members, and the members are ready for interacting with the presentation, and thanks ever so much. The first hand came up from Honorable Nchabeling, followed by Honorable Mailem. You know what we are going to do? We are going to give each of 10 minutes. Ariko, be ready with your timer so that you assist honorable members. At least we've got plenty of time for today.
Correct.
Thank you very much. Honorable Nchabeling. Honorable Nchabeling.
Chair, thanks a lot. Can I just take this after Honorable Mailem's input, because I'm just setting up my other device.
Okay.
Much appreciation.
Honorable Mailem.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, members, and good morning to Eskom and the department. Thank you very much for the presentation. Sorry, let me turn my screen here. There we go. Good morning to everybody. So first of all, let me thank you for the presentation. I think it's a fairly balanced presentation. And there's a good news and a bad news story, and we need to acknowledge the good news that there's been 169 days without load shedding, that the finances of the entity are looking a lot better. But at the same time, we need to pivot away from constantly going back and saying, look how well we've done, look how well we've done, and look at what challenges we still have. So right now, the challenges that we have are compliance, financial stability, and sustainability. Let me just come in on the last one as a starting point. You talk about, and this is an absolutely shocking statistic, that the target for relative particulate emissions is 0.35 kilograms per megawatt hour, and your actual Q2 performance is 5 times that target. Now, you did indicate that this is due to poor performance of emissions abatement plants and specifically failures with electrostatic precipitators at power plants like Kendall, Creel, and Matimba. My first question is, well, what are you doing about it? What is being done to mitigate that? What is being done to reduce that? And what is being done to bring those plants back online in terms of their particulate emissions?
CEO, you need to answer. It's a question and answer method.
Okay,
But
no,
with questions and also answers, one must take 10 minutes.
okay.
Of
No,
your
thanks, Chair. We'll cut to the chase, and Becky's on the line. It is true what Honorable Mayam said regarding the excursion in as far as environmental emissions are concerned. I'm very happy to indicate that subsequent to those operational issues, the weekly monitoring that the GE for generation has now put in place shows us that it's because of the maintenance work that was done on those areas. And Becky can comment very briefly on it. Time for Honorable Mayam. The issues of compliance, Chair, I just want to reiterate that we have acknowledged that we needed to strengthen internal controls, and hence our audit recovery program that is predicated on a 3-year recovery program. And just to remind the members, last year we had essential qualifications on 2 matters compared to 3 matters in the previous year. This was on the back of 3 months' work before that audit in terms of our audit recovery program. This audit audit that we're going into would have had the full year of progress on it. And from the results to date, with 90% of findings already from the past already closed, we are really comfortable that we are headed in the right direction. This remains our focal area, Chair, from a compliance perspective. And financially, yes, we need to resolve the Munich debt so we can deal with the aspects of our sustainability to make the value out of the national treasury intervention as we go through. We must improve our costs. This is why we are saying that that focus is now zooming into that area. But Becky, maybe if you give some stats around emissions, latest trends that we are seeing in that area subsequent to the intervention, sir.
Yeah, thank GCE. Yes, I can comment that the stations that we started badly this year, but for the stations like Matimba, Kendall, and Letabo, those were the worst performing. I can give this committee the assurance now that since July, all these 3 stations are meeting their emission targets. So this is just a legacy matter now due to the breakdowns we had after the rains last season. But yeah, I'm comfortable that now going towards this last 2 quarters, we will continue to be meeting our emission targets. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, just to follow up on that, what is the litigation risk exposure or the penalty risk exposure that's on your books for non-compliance? The financial exposure.
Chair, to Honorable Milam, in terms of the penalty, I'm not aware of a random amount linked to it, but more importantly, when you get to a point where the plant does shut down, and it's not only this and the others, then we'll see implications in terms of our operational performance and it could then lead to us leaning back on more expensive technologies. But in terms of the rand amount, I'm not close to that. Thanks.
Honorable Malam, I can also indicate that we have had these conversations with our board around the emissions performance range and redoubled and essentially taken the decision making beyond the power station managers up to the level of breaking out. To be saying that call when there's an excursion out of the range is at the GE level and no longer at the power station manager, so that we do not get them to be in a position where they are under operational pressure at the expense of us staying within the regulatory limits. This is one of the controls that we've brought in, because this is our license to operate and our responsible contribution towards the economy, towards the communities. But what's more important is that the interventions that we needed to do with regards to the state of the equipment that we use, we have done them. And Becky monitors that program on a weekly basis. We talk about it in the generations management boards, and we are comfortable that we have really resolved it, and we need to sustain it going forward. If we get out of range, he has the button to actually pull the plug on the stations that are offending.
Okay, thank you. On slide 8, you have a metric, Mr. Khumalo, showing your open cycle gas turbine generation. And in last week's weekly system status report briefing, you indicated that the amount of energy produced through OCGTs was 1,024 gigawatt hours for the period April through to the end of October 2025. Now, on your graph, you're showing a decline financial year, and year to date. However, the reality is that year to date, April to end of October, at 1,024 gigawatt hours, compared to the same period last year, we are actually up. Can you explain how you can present this as a good news story? Are we burning more diesel, and why are we burning more diesel?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Let me come in. Yeah, I think, Honorable Madam, you're right. But you must recall that the biggest burn, if you recall last year, is from January, when we had heavy rains up until May. That's when between April, May was the heavy burn on this year. But in terms of, since July, I can give you, you'll see that even if you look at the same statement, of which we publish every Friday, we actually, for this month, we only use diesel just for the statutory test of the Ankalech unit. So we have not used any liter of diesel. Even last month, it was the same thing. So just that it was a heavy burn in April and May. That's why also we ended up with those 26 hours that I've said on the same slide of load shedding. It was during that time, but since June up to now, the burn has actually been very low. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, I appreciate that, and we will obviously keep a close eye on that issue going forward. Just on that, one of the challenges that we have in monitoring Eskom and doing oversight over Eskom is that we don't see your PCLF actual numbers compared to what you are forecasting. So are we burning more diesel to keep our figures looking good, to keep the lights on, or not? So what I would ask for, and I'm not asking for an answer here, what I would ask for is, going forward in these presentations, that you show us a PCLF actual versus PCLF targeted. If I could turn to the financials for a moment, there are two issues that concern me. The first is this: your revenue is up 4.1%, despite your sales volume dropping by 3.6%. Now, what that tells me is that ordinary South Africans are being asked to pay more for electricity to keep Eskom in the black. It's not because you're selling more electricity, because you're not. It's because NERSA has agreed to push your prices up to cover the shortfall. Is that a fair statement?
We'll also deal with this issue. Local sales will be down, but you'll also see in the same vein that international sales are much more higher than what we had budgeted for, which are priced at different levels. So Caleb will deal with this aspect for you, Honorable Mayor. But we cannot leave the issue of the diesel spend untouched. In a very brief moment, let me indicate this to assist all members. You should look at the diesel spend within the context of what the energy availability factor is and what excess capacity we're sitting with. To think that we're still keeping lights on using diesel when we are actually switching off coal stations because of excess capacity on an ongoing basis, which we report weekly, is actually a flawed argument. We are not banning diesel anywhere close to the arguments that are being made out there in the public, and the numbers speak for themselves. Our biggest challenge at the moment, Honorable Mayor, is actually having to turn down machines because we've got excess capacity. Why would we turn down machines and then at the same time expend money on and costs on diesel? It's not the case. The PCLF, which is our plant maintenance level, is a function of our opportunism that we use every time we get a window to actually be doing maintenance, and we report that on a weekly basis. That report of the weekly power alert has moved from being 2 paragraphs to being 2 pages because we detail everything about where the PCLF is for a week and year-on-year improvements as we go through. And we are very happy to maybe see how we can expand on that to give more visibility around it. But this story about continued use of diesel to maintain lights is it's a hearsay. It's actually now becoming a little bit more quite strange, considering that we are emphasizing the fact that we have a lot of capacity on our hands. We are looking now at ways in which to stimulate demand for that capacity, and there's absolutely no commercial sense in us trying to run diesel machines when we have excess capacity from our coal fleet. Okay.
Yeah. If I, Honorable Malam, just to answer your question and add to what the GC has said, I think importantly, if we go back 24 months, at the height of the utilization of diesel, I think that was FY24, we spent as Eskom cumulatively 36 billion, the combination of the IPPs, diesel and Eskom. And you'll see in this presentation, yes, we spent just over 6 billion rand year to date for FY26. But as Becky Nmalo's indicated, where we are and what we've been spending in the last 2 months is literally no diesel. And we are forecasting for F26 to March that the total diesel spend will be 8.5 billion. Now, if we go back 24 months ago, that's some 27 billion rand reduction in diesel expenditure, just linked to the better performance to highlight. But getting back to your question on tariffs, yes, the regulator has approved the 12.7, and as I've indicated, it does contribute to that factor in terms of the revenue with the sales going down. But you need to understand also that allowance is for your operating costs as well as the return on your assets. And this is the first time in a long time that the regulator's return on assets allowed for Eskom to recover is now 4% in this financial year, whereas historically those numbers were around 1-2%, and then it migrates. It's definitely lower where we should be, and the regulator acknowledges that as well. Thank you.
Okay.
Your time is up, Mr. Milam.
Okay, well, my time got eaten up by the GCE talking a lot about diesel, but okay, I'll cede at this point.
Yeah, we'll give you another round if there is still
Thank
time.
you, Chair.
Honorable Nchabelenga, are you ready now?
Mr. Njabeleng was struggling to get on the platform with his
Okay,
other
let's
gadget, Chair.
get to Honorable Thring. And then Honorable Nkosi.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, let me appreciate also the presentation and thank the Eskom and all of the members who contributed to the presentation. Chair, let me then also go into my first question. The missed EAF target of 62.4% in September 25 versus the KPI of 65%. How confident are you of reaching the EAF targets going forward? And with the unreliability of renewables, what is the percentage base load versus renewables that you expect to be using to drive up the EAF in the short to medium term?
Okay, Becky will come in, Chair. Suffice to say that the renewables performance does not contribute towards our EAF calculation. In the document, we show that we forecast to end at about 64%, 64 of the 65. As we get into this summer period. Again, this summer period, just to remind the members, Becky did touch on it, is operationally one of the most challenging times that we tend to deal with in power generation. And the reason is that in winter, whilst we deal with low temperatures, is generally and dominantly a unidimensional problem. It's low temperatures. So you deal with the cold. In summer, in our operations, we deal with the risk of flooding, the risk of heavy rains that affects both mining operations, coal handling, and the general operations of the stations. But you also deal with excess heat that tends to affect the vacuum losses in some of the stations. So we tend to move into winter, into summer, quite cautious about the reductions that may happen. So maybe, Becky, if you say a word or two with regards to our confidence to the 64, 65 number.
Thank you. Chair, I think that the question with regards to diesel has been sufficiently covered. So I'm not going to go into that, as well as the target of relative particulate emissions. I think just suffice to say that you've got a 5 times greater emission, as I think Honourable Milam picked up, 5 times greater emission of 1.81 megawatts kilograms per megawatt hour. And I think that is certainly something that we all need to be concerned about from an environmental perspective. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. So I'm not going to ask a question on that. But maybe my next question then is, one of the goals of Eskom is to reduce the cost of electricity, or rather to supply a reliable, cost-effective supply of electricity to its consumers. And in particular, I think electricity costs have increased way above the inflation rate. And I think that the last time I checked, it was in the region of between 5 to 10 times the inflation rate over the last decade. So what is the specific plan to reduce the cost of electricity, and when do you envisage those benefits coming to the consumers, and in particular the ordinary man in the street, who right now is hard pressed, and obviously you're looking at some 10 to 15% of salary or income of your average household is now going towards electricity spend in an ordinary household. So what is the specific plan to reduce that cost, and by when are you expecting that reduction to take place?
Honourable Twing.
Yeah.
Honourable Twing, if I may respond to the direct questions. We have said it that going forward, we predicated our corporate plan to be on a single-digit tariff increase going forward. So we're moving from the double digits. But the second issue is, we also said that we are focusing on cost reduction within our business, because these cost reductions are necessary for us to be able to have a sustainable business, whilst also ensuring that the increases to the customers are kept to as low as possible. The other issue that we are engaged with key stakeholders within government is around the increase in the allocation of the free basic electricity to protect the indigent of our communities. So a solution along those lines will reduce the overall energy bill or electricity bill for consumers, but we must drive for really keeping increases below, within single digits, and increasingly driving them downwards. This is the aspect that will come into play as we go into the next tariff. I mean, we are now left with just in literally 1 year or 2 years into the MYPD. So the new MYPD will be looking very different from what we are sitting at. By then, the minister would have concluded this process of reviewing the electricity pricing policy, which he has indicated he will have responses to the country by June next year. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, I think that if the expectation or the focus is largely on the reduction of tariffs in the outer bands going forward, years going forward, but even those particular tariff increases are tariff increases that are above the current inflation rate, and inflation, is currently sitting at around 3% or so. And even the tariff increases in the outer line years are above those particular is above the inflation rate, kind of going forward. The challenge here, and the indigent are always going to be protected to a large extent with the free electricity. But I think the challenge is for your hardworking individual, the individual who's paying the taxes, the individual who's paying the rates, the individual who's kind of barely coming by because of the various increases that they are facing in terms of administered costs, in terms of inflation costs, food costs, and so on. So I think that while we are taking care of the indigent, our driving down the cost of electricity also needs to assist the one who is really carrying the bill, so to speak, in terms of paying taxes. So I certainly would like to see a focus in that particular area where the cost of electricity is certainly going to be reduced in the outer line areas, below inflation cost even. But Chair, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to go on to my next question is, what is the timeline to bring Eskom back to investment grade? I think that in the presentation there was a goal that one of the goals is to bring Eskom back to investment grade. What is the timeline to actually do that?
Honorable thing, I think firstly, where Eskom is, and I think positive from a country perspective, that will contribute, as we presented in our annual results and what we presented to this committee. We about 3 notches below investment grade as Eskom. We are hoping that in the near term, hopefully by the end of this financial year, we'll get at least 1 upgrade following the release of results, but that's subject to the rating agencies. Then thereafter, as we look to go to the capital markets in about 18 months to 2 years' time, and if that window allows us to get another adjustment, we think in about 2 years, 2.5 years, you can look to get 2 upgrades, and then you basically maybe just 1 short, and then maybe with the uplift from where the sovereign is, you could get there. But it's all based on continuing with the operational performance, the financial stability. But one of the key issues is, and when we discuss with rating agencies, their biggest concern is we're not seeing how you're addressing the municipal debt. Until we close that issue, Honorable Thing, I think it's going to be very difficult to convince the rating agencies from an Eskom perspective. So that is the key area that we need to address as a country to get Eskom to improve, get to that investment grade. So then when we go to the markets as our goal, we go on the back without burdening the fiscus in terms of government guarantees. But we have to show attraction and improvements on the municipal debt to contribute to that momentum to get those upgrades. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, then my last question has to do with the ferrochrome smelters. I think that the minister indicated that he was in negotiations and we're looking at saving jobs, which is a positive thing. And certainly I think the ACDP has consistently indicated that we need to move towards beneficiation as a low-hanging fruit. but it's not only the ferrochrome industry, you know. So if we are going to be, so my first question with regards to that, have any concessions or agreements been made with the ferrochrome industry in terms of saving jobs and getting those smelters up and running? And we also know that these are huge drawers of electricity. With some of those smelters, you know, the electricity that goes there is sufficient to run a city or an entire municipality. But when that also happens, you are obviously going to have other sectors, particularly within the mining industry, asking for similar concessions, because one of the reasons of their shutting down and exporting of raw material has been the high cost of electricity in South Africa versus low costs where our raw materials are going to. So is there some kind of agreement or concessions that have been given to the ferrochrome, and how are you going to be dealing with demands from other sectors, particularly within the mining industry? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Tring. I can indicate that we are at a very engaged stage with the industry around finding a solution, led by the Ministry of Electricity and Energy in collaboration with the DTIC. And we're really looking for a solution that can be applicable to a wider range to the extent that it is necessary. So we are at very, very intense stages of looking for a solution here that creates a relief for that industry without creating a risk for Eskom itself, but also setting up a template on which other industries who will enter such difficulties may be assisted from a framework point of view. And that work is quite advanced, it's very intense, it's a subject of constant engagement between the industry and ourselves within this few days. And we are hoping that we can be able to get something on agreement in place as soon as all the elements align. At this moment, we're really looking at a number of combinations, and we'll update the committee at the appropriate time.
Your time is up, Mr. Tring.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm ready.
Okay. You can come.
Thank you so much. I think, honorable members, good morning, Chair, good morning, as well as the Secretary and, support staff. Good morning, executives of Eskom, the Group Chief Executive, as well as the Group Executives, and including the Minister or the Ministers if they are online. Just a quick one. I'm just going to run on a few questions and maybe I can get an interactive answer on it. One must say that we really appreciate the progress that has been made with regards to Eskom in terms of the turnaround in respect to how the plants have been really given performance. There's been an amazing turnaround, and when Eskom was regarded as actually a dead horse, which has no more capacity to can actually give more life, you have proven the extreme opposite. And this has been really quite encouraging to see that we have a state-owned power utility that is still performing at the level that is performing. Going forward, we just want to see these results actually sustain. I had a conversation with one of the executives in the environment, and he was saying to me that it is not advisable for energy to be run by the state. And I said, but South Africa is an extreme example of it, where the state has perfected the operation of an energy sector and has actually showed that you need a state utility to stabilize a country's sovereign energy base. And this was the foreigner who we were talking about visiting on the G20 thing. And we were just talking about the energy fundamentals. But you can see that some of the misdirected debate around state ownership is really to do with executives' performance. As an executive group, you have really shown us that it is possible and can be done. The arguments that we have raised in the past saying that what was done to Eskom was literally to break it down so that it can be prepared for privatization. You have proved it completely correct, that there were machination in process and there were attempts to make sure that Eskom is starved of much needed resources and capital in order to do maintenance, in order to ensure that the plants are functional, in order to ensure that there's financial sustainability of the organization. So really well done on that side of it. And for the awards that you have received as Eskom, yourself, Group Chief Executive, as well as the chairperson, as well as the other executives, well done on that. We applaud you and we really say continue going forward. And from an MK point of view, we really take pride in seeing that there is a possibility for a state-run entities that can perform at their best and show that South Africa has the capability to run state-owned entities when everybody around the world believes that, you know, we should privatize everything and move out of state-owned entities and starve our people of opportunities for jobs, training, and employment, as well as experience and skills. So you've done a major turnaround, and really, we need to give you a round of applause for this whole thing. And I know you'll think that I overpraise you guys, but, you know, it's really fair. I mean, I have to give you due where it's due, you know, give credence where it's due. The key questions I just wanted to touch on, everybody has touched on the diesel. I hope you have received my questions on the diesel side of it, because you have a, you know, arch enemy called Andre de Ruyter, who has come on media saying very clearly that you guys have not been performing. You have been using diesel as a means to actually keep up your performance. But based on the current power excess that you have, 10,000 megawatts of power excess, definitely that cannot be the case. But it doesn't need to take that level of, you know, researching to see what is currently happening. So we want to say that I think get engaged on these debates much more robustly and not sit back and let almost a narrative surpass you and be taken over and be projected as if you're a group of executives who have no clue what you're doing. So on that side of it, I think take a bit of a proactive activity in terms of how you manage your narrative out there. The diesel issue has been resolved, so I'm not going to get into it. I just want to know, with the current debt relief, what is the mandatory distribution agreement agency of holding these municipalities to account? What are you going to do for defaulting municipalities post the debt relief? Because it's one thing to receive the debt relief funds, but what do you do thereafter to make sure that they pay you timeously and they pay you on time?
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to honorable members. It is Agnes Mlambo. I'm not sure if you can see me on the camera. So on the Munich debt, there are 3 levels. Obviously, the first level was, or maybe the first level is to try and collect. And the second level was the anti-debt relief. We are now at the stage that we are pursuing, and aggressively so, and thanks to the support by the Minister and Parliament on the DAA. And then obviously, if that does fail, our next level would be to follow the party process in terms of the disconnection. And the last resort is revoking, or rather asking the courts to revoke the electricity license. Of course, that is the last resort. It is not our intent. Our intent is to make the industry to work. And that is why we are pursuing the DAA aggressively. And in that process, it is a temporal arrangement. The municipality retains their license, and we work with the municipality to build the capacity that would also help the municipality to be able to bill correctly and be able to increase their revenues, and therefore to honor their current account. And that is the approach that we're taking in terms of managing the Munich debt. It is a longish process, and in the interim, unfortunately, we experienced the increase as reported by the CFO. We also have got support from the ministries, both on the DE as well as on finance, that we ask the entity to withhold the equitable share until the municipality is able to prove that they have honored their payments for both electricity, and a similar arrangement is with the water. But again, we are using all means to try and get the municipalities to pay and contain the growth of that Munich debt. Thanks, Chair.
He's muted.
Thanks for the answer. How are you doing to do the conversion of these unsustainable municipalities towards prepaid or credit limited electricity supply agreement. Are you going to enforce that, or this is just an idea on a strategy? Is it realistic? Are you going to enforce a prepaid agreement for particularly those that have given you the problems in the past of not paying properly and that are currently in a debt rescue environment? Because we don't want to come back to this where Eskom has been plagued with a municipal debt default and credit crisis for over 10 years. This is not new. It has been an ongoing. It just became exacerbated in the last few years, post particularly, I think it was post COVID period. Municipalities' debt just ballooned from 20 odd billion to now almost over 100 billion. So just explain to us how you're going to now implement that prepaid or credit limited electricity supply agreement.
Thank you, Honorable Chabeling. We can only enforce, we have offered the prepaid to the municipalities, which they have not accepted. The only way to enforce it is through the PAJA and the court process. But again, the approach that we're taking is the one that is collaborative and to try and manage or rather deal with the fundamental issues. And we are saying by the time we get to the point of PAJA, we would have exhausted all other options available to us and using the intergovernmental process to assist us.
Okay. All right. On the follow-up side of it, your post-debt relief capital structure, what model are you looking at? Because after this relief of the 100 billion or the 86 billion you're receiving, what is your now capital structure for your post-debt relief? Because you've been getting a lot of relief from government in terms of capital injection, the debt with regards to Medupi and Kusile. You are receiving now another tranche with regards to the municipal default. Post this particular packages, what are the other packages are you going to be looking at in terms of raising capital for Eskom in terms of maintenance as well as plant expansion, and then your new other project?
Thanks, Honorable Chabeling. I think first and foremost, ultimately, when we look at our capital expenditure, we split it into two components. The maintenance capital expenditure, we want that funded from cash from operations. Only on the growth expansion capex, that should be funded in the form of either debt or some support in terms of public-private partnerships, in the form of whatever equity that they bring in. But ultimately, we're working on the details that we have to go back to the board and set those targets. We'll come back to the committee. But if I just had to sum up, we want to do it in such a way that as we add debt to the balance sheet, we don't want to get to a point where we can't service those commitments. So we got to manage the phasing of it. We also believe the ITPs on the NTCSA expansion in terms of TDP is also going to help to provide some relief in what we do raise in the capital markets. But we got to manage the pace at which we do it so we don't trip ourselves up where we find ourselves in a situation we can't meet those commitments when they come due. And I think it's linked to the earlier question of Honorable Tring. You get those rating adjustments that are positive, you can then enter into much more favorable terms, longer tenors. So then you sculpt your maturity profile that is more affordable going forward. But once we've got the detail, we will definitely come back to you after it's been approved by the board. Thank you.
Okay.
Your time is up, Mr. Chabeling.
All right, I'll send in the question, but maybe put this question in mind. What is your repurposing plan for Komati Power Station to bring back the jobs back to Komati? What is the repurposing plan? I just want to leave this question. So
Okay, Honorable Chabeling, you'll get another second round maybe. So keep your questions and then we'll come around. Honorable Vusingosi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, I would like to also join honorable members first and greet you Honorable Chair, honorable members in the meeting, and also Eskom and the department. Honorable Chair, I also agree with honorable members that Eskom has done well so far, and they should keep up the good work. I will also say to Eskom that South Africa appreciate the work that you are doing on keeping our lights on, and also turning Eskom to being the best energy generation in Africa. Keep up the good work. You're doing well so far. And Chair, I will also like to welcome the report as presented. I just have some clarities on some of the issues, Chair. The first will be on the progress so far on the decommissioned plants. I saw also Honorable Chabeling was trying maybe to go on that question. I also have a question on that. Chair, what is the progress on the specific economic diversification and infrastructure investment projects for the decommissioned sites like Komati, as the initial phase of converting them into renewable energy hubs? Chair, I want to understand what is the progress or what progress was made so far in regarding the reskilling, the repurposing, and the re-employment of the local staff in Q1 and Q2 under the Just Energy Transmission framework. That is my first question, Chair.
Shall I invite Becky Ngubalo to perhaps address this matter broadly for members and as covered by Honorable Chabeling as well? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, GC, and thanks to Honorable Member Nkosi and the members. I think let me just deal with the issues of repowering of the stations. I think what is now good, I think Komati in particular, if I may talk there, we are busy there with now the PVs and batteries. But on top of that, now we will be deploying newer technologies there at Komati based on what came out from the IRP now that has been pronounced. So I think we just going through some approval process internally, but I can give the committee assurance that we've got now the projects that are cleaner projects that we'll be deploying, not only at Komati, but all of the stations, and Reina, Camden, Arnott, and Grootplay as well. So we've got projects that we will be running in the next 5 years to 2030 to kickstart the new process. And one of the other major projects that we will be running out, you will see that the IRP, there was also a nuclear, and it talks to the SMR. That is part of those newer technologies that we want to bring in. So we are busy with some of the pre-work to deal that and say, how do we prepare these sites as well for the SMR program. But apart from SMR, there is quite a number of projects that are on the pipeline that we are rolling out on all the sites as well. Yeah, thanks, GCE. And then also maybe in terms of reskilling the staff is part of that. I think working with our team in HR, we have got plans also to not only to reskill for the things like PVs and batteries, those ones we already know, it's just a matter of now increasing. Same as the biggest skills requirement will come from the nuclear space as well, if we build a new build program, and also broadly from the country's perspective as well. So I think in terms of the skilling, the training facilities, we are well internally to Eskom, and also we are partnering with TVET colleges and universities as well. So I think the training program are well underway. We anticipated of what is required, and I think I'm quite comfortable with the work that we have done now so far with our HR team as well. Thank you.
I think maybe it's worth emphasizing, if I may, through you, Chair, that at Komati specifically, the interventions on PV and battery installations that we had said will go out and address are now underway. We've had some glitches with aligning the World Bank procurement requirements with our country requirements. We've resolved those, and we are on track to complete the commercial processes for installations. I think the other thing that is important at that site is the construction and the building of the containerized microgrids, which are our flagship renewable opportunities for areas that are outside the national grid that requires volumes. We are closed off now with the funding to scale up the construction of those activities at the sites for the maintenance of jobs in the area. So there is alternatives that are now underway. The procurement has taken longer because of the glitches we had, but it's now all resolved between ourselves and the World Bank, and the process will be concluded to start construction next week.
Thank you very much. My next question will be, is that one of the targets that you did not achieve pertains to investigations. Given that the target was also missed in the 2024-2025 financial year, what corrective action plans were implemented to fix the failure, and why did this intervention fail to yield the results in Q1 and Q2?
Let me invite Thembela Khulu, our General Manager for Security, Forensics and Investigations. She is online. She joined the session. And Thembela, if you could respond to the honorable member's question. And also, you may have to take it up. I think she's not there.
She is there.
Is she online? Thembela, can you hear us? Maybe unmute.
But she's traveling. Maybe
Yeah. Sorry, we apologize, members. She is on an international travel. Thembela, Mentokozo will take the question up.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. We did indicate that I think the delay mainly has been the resourcing and the staffing of resources internally to fast track the resolution of the cases of the fraud cases. So it's not a matter of they have failed, but we're just giving them time after the resourcing. We've said that we have now resources. We have established a fully dedicated PMO office under the leadership of Thembela, which was done at the beginning of this financial year, and it's already in operation. So we should see the improvement coming in now. So we are giving the interventions a bit of time to mature.
Yeah.
And we're also working with the likes of SIU. Or Thembela, I see Thembela is back, but we are working with other external stakeholders to see how they can help us in expediting.
Maybe you can hear from the horse's mouth. She is online now. She is abroad, but General Thembela can give us a sense of what she's doing at Kona briefly to save the members' time.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Good afternoon. I am absolutely correct. Good afternoon. And I just had the question.
Still morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair. I had the question is in relation to the delays in the forensic investigation. Chair, we've got reports, cases, our cases span from 2019 up to now. I think we've got about 4 cases for 2019. The delays is in 2 folds. The delays are with respect to us having to trace some of the witnesses because some of them are no longer employed in the organization, or some of them have left the forensic investigation firms that used to work for. So you have to go and trace the investigators as well as the witnesses. But Chair, it's true, Honorable Chair, to say the intervention one, we've actually now started a triage unit that we call Raptor, and it has actually just dealt with 86 cases and in our space. whose cases now are at report review stages. We have got 111 cases, Chair, that have been handed over to the PMO office as indicated by Nontokozo. That has actually reduced significantly our cases that were 512 in this quarter that we are reporting. So with these numbers, Chair, we are quite convinced that we will be able to have those numbers by end of March in the next financial year, which would assist us in dealing with the cases. But Chair, I do want to say there's been a significant improvement in terms of disciplinaries. It's because there is a tracking that is done by the ministry which says all disciplinaries that are above 90 days, an explanation needs to be given. And now that has pushed a number of those disciplinaries, and we try so that we make sure that all our disciplinaries, they've started, and it's only because of legal representation as well as any other laws that would allow us to delay cases. But there's been a significant improvement in terms of those cases. I can say to this committee there are about 47 cases that are still on 90 days, but most of the cases that have been dealt with. All departments have significantly improved in dealing with their own cases. Thank you, Chair.
Your time is up, Mr. Nkosi.
Thank you, Rico. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable Nkosi. Honorable Paulson, followed by
Good morning,
Honorable
Chair.
Bapti. Morning.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, colleagues, and good morning to Eskom officials. Thank you very much for the presentation. I just have a few questions. The Q1 review indicates that Kusile Unit 6 added 800 megawatts capacity, and Medupi Unit 4 returned to service, adding 794 megawatts. But the Q2 report states that Kusile Unit 6 and Medupi Unit 4 returned, adding 720 megawatts each. And the official KPI for new capacity added in megawatts for Q2 is listed only as 720 megawatts. So why do the reported capacities for Kusile Unit 6, 800 megawatts versus 720 megawatts, and Medupi Unit 4, 794 megawatts versus 720 megawatts? Why is there a difference between the two, and what does with the two KPI table, why does the Q2 KPI table only reflect 720 megawatts added? And it seems it's excluding the significant capacity returned by Medupi Unit 4.
Okay.
That's my first question.
Thanks, Honorable Paulson. Let me take that one. Chair, I think maybe, let me clarify. Kusile is 800 megawatts. That is the capacity rating of the station. Medupi is 794. So those numbers are correct. Maybe the issue of 720 is still the correct way. What's happening there is what we call auxiliary consumption of if you take 800, you minus the self consumption by the stations. That's why the 720 is what goes onto the network. But we'll then align with our that we use one number so that we don't create confusion. But yeah, the number is 800 and 794 at Medupi. They are correct. The 720, they are also correct, is what goes eventually to the network. And then the 80 megawatt is for the self-consumption within the station. But we will use one number, Chair, going forward so that we don't create confusion for the committee. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So the Q1 review states that the entity achieved 21 out of 31 of the quarterly targets. That's 71%. And that's for April to June 2025. The Q2 report covering the subsequent quarter states that Eskom only met 20 of its KPI targets for Q2 out of a total of 33 KPIs at 61%. So what caused the total number of KPIs to increase from 31 in Q1 to 33 in Q2? And what specific operational or strategic targets failed in Q2, leading to the 10 percentage point decrease in the achievement rate from 71% to 61%?
Okay.
Thank you.
Member Bhakti, we have.
Paulson.
Sorry, I'm looking at the screen and I've seen the other hand.
Wait, I'll put on my video just for a moment.
Yes.
It's Mr. Bhakti.
Yes, much appreciated. We have standard number of KPIs. So the changes are which ones have got content targets. Okay. We have a standard number of the KPIs that are here, and none of them have changed from Q1 to Q2. The standard number remains at 33. But where the changes are is the number that we have met on Q1 versus Q2, where there might have been changes. But we remain on 33%, which is the KPIs that we have contracted on the shareholder, be it was Q1 or Q2. The difference will be the number, but also there are ones that at this point in time we are tracking, but we can't assign performance until year end because they are milestone based, like the legal separation. At this point in time, we don't assign the targets, the ITP, the first year. There was not, the first quarter, there was no target because it was the preparatory, but we've only started now tracking it going forward. But we will definitely make sure that when we bring the dashboard, there's a continuity and no confusion of how we code the percentages. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So the Q2 report claims that sustained improvements and improvements in key operational KPIs, right? But the detailed Q2 data showed that system minutes less than 1 worsened dramatically from Q1, where there's an actual of 0.59 minutes, to Q2, where there's an actual of 2.32 minutes, missing the Q2 target of 1.75 minutes. So that means the measure of operational stability worsened by nearly 4 times between Q1 and Q2, and was specifically impacted by large interruptions due to protection scheme and circuit breaker failures. So how is the quadrupling of the system minutes loss reconciled with the claim that Eskom achieved sustained improvements and improved key operational KPIs overall?
I mean,
Thank you.
and indicate the following, honorable member. We headlined our engagements there that there's a general positive operational performance with areas requiring attention, and we highlighted what those areas are. Overall, there's a general positive operational direction. We acknowledge areas of challenges. I think Andrew Ettinger is on the call from NTCSA, and he'll be able to explain what is driving this rapid change in the system minutes from a transmission business perspective. We know what the challenge is. We have a plan of how to resolve it because it's about the systematic management of maintenance in the space and to avoid interruptions, just like we did with the generation fleet. Andrew?
Good morning, honourable member and chairperson. Yes, indeed. It is really a matter of refurbishment of assets in the NTCSA network and grid to make sure that we don't see a continuation of the negative trend on system minutes lost. So this is really at the transmission grid level. This is not at a distribution level. So we on it, and I think that the focus not only on TDP expansion, but also on increasing reliability, and the focus of that is there, and we'll see the results come through by year end according to expectation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Q1 review clearly states that out of the total government debt relief, 40 billion was allocated to Eskom for the 2025-2026 financial year and will be dispersed during the fourth quarter. So why does the Q2 report, which extensively covers financial performance and impact of government support, the 140 billion received in financial year 2024-2025, but fails to mention the specific 40 billion allocation for the current financial year 2026, and despite this being a crucial future liquidity input for the year-end financial position?
Paulson, Honorable Paulson, originally in the debt relief program, it was 40 billion, as you indicated, and we look to draw down that as late as possible. As the Honorable Member would be aware that when we draw it down, it attracts interest until it gets allowed to be converted into equity. But following the Minister's speech in February, he's also increased for this financial year by another 40 billion, because we have a big maturity on the 2nd of April 2026. So bottom line, Honorable Paulson, as I indicated, there will be 80 billion that will flow to Eskom in FY26, and that 80 billion will flow in the last quarter, so we draw down as late as possible. But effectively on the 2nd of April, we will pay down a big maturity of 40 billion, and then the other 40 billion will be used to match the maturity profiles going forward. I hope that clarifies, Honorable Paulson. But from our perspective, we like to draw down as late as possible to limit the interest impact. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your time is up, Mr. Paulson.
I had one more, Rico, but okay, I'll wait for the next round. Thank you very much. Chair?
Chair?
Okay, thank you, Secretary. Thank you, Honorable Paulson. I said Honorable Bapti must follow. Honorable Bapti, it's your turn. Secretary.
Mr. Bapti is on the platform, Chair. He was still adjusting his camera.
Okay.
Unmute, Mr. Bapti. Mr. Bapti. We seem to have lost Mr. Bapti, Chair.
Will you please check for him? Because he was the last honorable member. Then, since there's still time, we can also take the follow-up questions meanwhile, Honorable Baptisland. Any follow-up questions? Honorable Bapti is still maybe stuck somewhere. Honorable Maile and Honorable Paulson. Where is Honorable Nchabeleng? Because he was the one who had one question or follow-up. Okay, let's follow the sequence of Honorable Mailem, followed by Honorable Paulson.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you for the answers that we've received so far. A lot of my follow-up questions have been responded to already through questions that my colleagues have asked. I really just have one more issue that I'd like to probe a little bit more, and that is the municipal debt issue. Now, the graph that you showed of the growth in municipal debt over the last 10 years is horrific. It's absolutely unfathomable. I'm really concerned that given that only 15% of the 71 municipalities that are on the municipal debt relief are actually compliant, what is Eskom doing to ensure that they're getting their money? Now, we've heard a lot about the distribution agency agreements. We've been hearing about it for the better part of a year now. And I see that National Treasury have endorsed it, but have COGTA bought in on it? And what are you doing to enforce DAA agreements on these municipalities? And what happens when a municipality doesn't comply? What is the DAA? What are the consequences for a municipality that doesn't comply with the DAA? Thank you.
Madam, just as my colleague Agnes indicated in response to Honorable Chaveling's question, there are multiple stages of engagement here. The first one is a collaborative effort. This is what we are seeking to do with the distribution agency agreement. It's got a win-win. It improves the revenue collection from our side, from the municipality side, with our interventions and the payment levels through to us. We've seen this in the municipalities where we've implemented this. At the same time, it helps capacitate the municipalities to be able to do this on their own going forward. We have also indicated that the discussions around components of the what do you call it? The December the PAJA processes to enforce stricter discipline and the issue of the allocations that National Treasury has towards municipalities are instruments that needs to be utilized to drive compliance. We have said this before to the committee. The issue of municipality debt is no longer an Eskom problem. It's a country problem, and we've requested support from all stakeholders, including yourselves as Parliament, as lawmakers. We have also requested that you use your opportunities to encourage other stakeholders to come to the party. We are happy that the discussions that we have invested in the last 7 to 8 months with National Treasury, with SALGA, have really led us to a point where the Minister of Finance was able to articulate the positions that he did last week. The DAA has been a collaborative effort in bringing it to this point. We have figured it out. We've had to refine some elements of it to make sure that we can have other stakeholders take it. It is the interim solution for us to reduce the growth in the level of Munich debt. It is not the ultimate solution. The ultimate solution will come with a fundamental restructuring of the Munich setup from an electricity distribution point of view to ensure that they are viable. But in the meantime, we have pressure in terms of arresting the increase of this level. And this is the intervention that we are now doing as Eskom. This is beyond us. It's beyond us. It requires multiple stakeholders. It certainly requires government. And our ministers have given some leadership in this area. We welcome National Treasury's pronouncements that they made last week. We are ready to implement it using the lessons that we have learned elsewhere. So thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I think I've resolved my problem.
Chair, Mr. Bapti is back.
Chair, can I just finish this line of questioning and then I'll hand over to Mr. Bapti with the greatest of pleasure.
Okay. Can you finish up, Honorable Mailem? Then we can give over to Mr. Honorable Bapti.
Thank you, Chair. And I appreciate the answer, but it doesn't really address the issue of what happens when there is non-compliance with a DAA or any other intervention that is taking place. So I guess the real issue is, first of all, how long before the other, 60 municipalities are brought on board? That's the first part. And the second is, what happens when these municipalities who were not complying with the municipal debt relief program, what do we do with them? How do we get them to actually pay what they owe Eskom? That's where I'm trying to get to. I appreciate the work that's being done. I appreciate the interactions that are being held with National Treasury and the like. But how do we actually hold their feet to the fire? Thank you.
Honorable Ma'am, it's a real question. You know that in the water space, the National Treasury intervened by withholding equitable share portions for municipalities that were not paying their water boards and driving them to bankruptcy. Now, let's take this into the electricity space. That is a tool that could be available. You know very well that as soon as you do that, impacts some of the services that this municipalities needs to actually provide. It is for that reason that we seriously require some considered efforts from all stakeholders, including lawmakers, on how we make these municipalities viable. This problem is beyond Eskom. You know, our ability to intervene is limited to collaboration, some interventions on equitable share that could be there, some court processes that are quite protracted, and lead us, spending a lot of time and resources in those areas. We have to solve organically what is causing these municipalities to be unable to pay. And this is something that requires all of us support. We will do what we can within our space, but there are jurisdictions that we require support as well, as we have said before, through you, Chairperson. Thank you.
Just the timeline to bring those on board, and then I'm done.
Yeah, the DAA has been announced last week. We are now working with all stakeholders to onboard the municipalities that fit into that category, and will then deal with their performance and see how we progressively take on. It is something that is quite critical, as we have said. It is on our radar, Honorable Madam.
Okay, thank you. No, you wait, Honorable Bapti. You know what? I don't want to be seen as answering for Eskom. But the reality of the matter is that, Honorable Mailem, we need to also have a homework on what needs to be done with the municipalities that doesn't own their responsibility. I hear the CEO is also mentioning the SALGA, the COCTA, ourselves as lawmakers. Maybe it's also our homework so that we can advise on what needs to be done. Because this is, I will say, overdue and outstanding. This matter of non-payment has been there. Since I was in the Water Portfolio Committee, it's there. The boards were not able to pay their accounts. But let's leave it there. It's a question to ourselves, and also Eskom also needs to come up on what do they think needs to happen. They can also advise us as lawmakers. Thank you very much for these questions. I really appreciate it. They are thought-provoking questions, which we need to think wisely. Honorable Bapti, over to you. Your 10 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to turn off my camera if that's all right. Will help with my bandwidth. Chair, greetings to you and the colleagues on the committee, and to the staff at Eskom and on the department. I want to start off by saying that the improvements are welcomed and appreciated. Any improvement is good for us. But I do want to just signal some caution over the improvements in profitability, which I'll come to in one of my questions. Our first issue, Chair, is around load reduction. We don't have a specific KPI dealing with load reduction, and we were given a presentation by Eskom of their 3-year plan to address load reduction. Obviously, the very negative impact it has on a lot of people who put up with it, particularly those who are paying for the electricity accounts every month. The KPIs that we do have, some of them refer to or infer what's happening in the load reduction space, but we don't get a clear picture of progress on the load reduction program. And my request would be that we have some form of reporting that informs us as a committee on how progress is being made with regard to load reduction on a regional and a national level. And if perhaps the officials could respond on that first, I'll then move to my other two questions.
Through you, Honourable Bati, thank you very much for your question. I can indicate that we do have a shareholder compact target that deals with the installation of smart meters. We have also explained that we're using the smart meter installation to focus and prioritize areas that are affected by load reduction so that we can waive it out. We will see how we link the two for visibility, but that number of smart meters installation is essentially what is driving the performance that we expect to see in load reduction. And so we will just need to link the two much more closely for your visibility. So.
Thanks, Chair. I understand that, and I know that the smart meter is one of the main means of addressing it, but what we're not seeing is whether the numbers that were quoted in the plan are being achieved. I'm going to move on to my next issue, and that is to do with the tariff increases and Eskom's profitability. The CFO was quite correct in saying that the profits are driven by price increases to a large extent, and I want to go further and say that Eskom's profitability is driven by high price increases. Those high price increases, one must ask the question, who's actually paying it? The one who looks at Eskom's customer base in industrial, commercial, agricultural, and the residential customers, who's actually paying the bulk of those price increases? And is it really affordable to them, and is it fair on them? The feeling I get is that the residential customers are carrying an extra heavy burden. So it comes to that whole issue of pricing and tariffs. Now, we saw in April the tariff increase, which was quoted by NERSA and Eskom as being 12.74%. But what Eskom customers experienced on their accounts, their bills, was something very different, double that number. And that's because of the disaggregation of the fixed charges on the bill. So there's two comments I want to make, and one is that the tariff structure is really too complex for most people to understand and appreciate. But secondly, the increase in the unbundled fixed costs was never ever made known to the public beforehand, either by Eskom or NERSA. The question then is this going to happen again with the next price determination? Or is there a way, is there going to be an attempt at least to make people aware of fixed cost increases which didn't come through in this last increase, which have to be paid, but we're not never ever part of the public participation process?
Honourable Bhakti, before my colleague Agnes comes in, I just want to acknowledge the fact that the price does play a role in your profitability, but price alone is not your driver of profitability. We had high prices still in previous years. What also matters is your operational performance. So you need a combination of aspects to drive yourselves to profitability, and we should not forget that you need all aspects to be working. And we recognize the fact that there is pressure as a result of the price levels that are there. We have discussed this issue. We've indicated this is the reason why the minister is driving efforts of reviewing the pricing, electricity pricing principle and policy, so we can address this aspect holistically. So, and then the second thing is that as part of the reforms, and we've said it in our focus areas, we have to focus on the unbundled tariffs so that the user pay principle can be very understood by everyone and create transparency around what are consumers paying for at the different levels of consumption, and hence the need to drive this unbundled tariff discussion so there are no surprises within that aspect. So let me hand over to Agnes to deal with the other component of the question.
Thanks, GCE. So the question is, are we still going to see more of the fixed charges increasing? I think the correct way of looking at it is we are still in the process of unbundling our tariffs, and therefore the split between the variable and the fixed charges will continue. If we do not do that, it means that we are going to tie a lot of these capacity charges to the volumes. And therefore, as we have some of our customers that are using alternative generators, but are using Eskom as a backup, we will not be able to recover those backup costs. That is making sure that when those alternative generators are not generating electricity, that Eskom is available to provide electricity as part of reliability of supply. Now, if you don't do that, it means the customers, which are mostly those that are vulnerable, that do not have the means for alternative energy, will then face the brunt of carrying that capacity charge. And that is why it is critical. So yes, the consultation process is a process that is managed and run by NERSA. However, as Eskom, we have been educating our customers, and we continue to do so in terms of educating our customers. And again, the more we do not have our customers registered for those that do not have alternative energy sources, it makes it difficult for us to properly size up what is that standby capacity that we must always have available in the case that the sun or the wind is not blowing or the sun is not shining. Chair, I hope I've covered it. Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, Chair, look, the point I was making is that in the last price increase, there was no mention made at any stage to the general public that the tariff unbundling would imply much greater costs on those fixed charges. And I understand the rationale for the tariff unbundling to align with the unbundling of the organisation. But I do believe it's essential that people are informed beforehand so that they know what increases are coming. The general public were expecting 12.74%, and most people were looking at ultimately something like double that number. But it does appear then that the fixed charges will be increasing as well. And I just hope that Eskom and NERSA are going to be transparent about this. I'm going to come to my last issue, and it's been covered to some extent by previous speakers. That's to do with Eskom's municipal debt. Why I'm going to focus on it is because I do believe there's an area where we are missing out. And it's really not ultimately an issue that Eskom can solve on its own. And I think correctly, officials have said it requires a multi-pronged approach. But municipalities have been around for 25 years. They didn't come about recently. And if one looks at the rate at which municipal debt has climbed in 10 years, from 5 billion to 105 billion, that growth is not linear, it's exponential. And what I'm going to say here may be controversial, but I think it's true. This is due to a large extent to conduct. And the fact that the increases have grown in the way they have, the number of municipalities who are defaulting have grown, is again attributed to conduct, and I don't think conduct is being addressed. I appreciate the DAAs and all the efforts put in by Treasury and Eskom to try and address debt coming from a customer, but in the customer, in this case being the municipalities. But the conduct of the municipalities is not being addressed, and when there's no consequences, it's unlikely that that conduct will change. And we saw recently where the Auditor General issued a certificate of debt to a municipal manager for costs that were incurred that should never have been incurred. These budgets that municipalities prepare are approved by their council, they're prepared by the officials, the CFOs, the MMs, the senior managers, council approves them, and then those budgets go to provincial treasury for approval and for comment. And provincial treasury then has a role to play in making sure that the municipality is adequately providing for its cost and its revenue collection. So there's one area immediately where some intervention can take place. It then goes back to the municipal council for final adoption in the month of March. And if a municipal council adopts a budget that doesn't make provision to pay for the bulk electricity it consumes, then that council is at fault. And no one appears to be taking action against the individual councillors who approve those budgets and the officials who put those budgets together and then don't pay for the services they're receiving. And I do think that the Auditor General's role in this has to be a lot stronger. And the issuance of certificates of debts will go a long way to change the conduct. And that's really at the nub of the problem with municipal debt. We hear a lot about municipalities not being viable, but the law does not require municipalities to render services that are not sustainable. It only requires them to render services that are sustainable. So when municipalities don't budget adequately or correctly, and they do so knowingly, and ultimately drive up the price of electricity for all those customers who do pay, it can't be acceptable, and that conduct needs to be addressed. And perhaps it's not within Eskom's domain to deal with this conduct, but certainly I think Eskom should have a conversation with the Auditor General about certificates of debt on officials and councillors who find it acceptable not to pay for the energy they consume. I'd just like a comment or a response on that, whether there's agreement or is this something that is not considered?
Honourable Battery, we welcome the the reflection and the realm of possibilities. Of course, we'll study this much more closely. Our ministry is listening in as well to see how we can this kind of an intervention to act. But it's been quite an contribution, especially given the powers that the Auditor General has recently shown they can also bring to bear. We need all help. As I said, this is an SAE problem now, and this has been quite meaningful insights to listen to.
Thank you, Chair.
Chair?
Are you done, Honorable Babdi?
Yeah, his time is up anyway, Chair.
Oh, okay. And then who else is following? Can I look at
It's me, Chair.
Honorable Paulson and Honorable Singh?
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning once again. So the document states that the relative particulate emissions severely missed the target of sulfur emissions, for example, of 1.81 kilograms per megawatt hour versus 0.35 target. And this requires immediate action. So the Q1 review specifically mandates prioritizing effectiveness of operating and maintenance of dust handling plants at Kendal, Kriel, Matimba, and Letabo. So the Q2 report lists the intervention as the more general action of implementing of the remaining emission retrofit projects and optimization of completed upgrades. So considering that the Q1 review identified the poor performance was driven by issues with electrostatic precipitators and dust handling plants at specific stations, Kendal, Kriel, and Matimba. Why does the Q2 report listed intervention for relative particulate emissions not explicitly include the critical need for prioritizing operating and maintenance of dust handling plants at the named power stations? And this is critical. I mean, can you imagine the impact of those dust particles on the surrounding communities? And I would have imagined that this would have been a priority and not something that we'd have to emphasize all the time to Eskom. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Paulson. We have actually responded to this question earlier. Begin explained that as we speak, since the time of reporting, in the last 4 or 5 weeks, we have now gotten those offending stations back into the limits because of the interventions from a maintenance perspective that has been taken on. We highlight the need to continue to roll out the maintenance refurbishments at other stations to ensure that we drive towards our overall program of emissions reductions. We're not done with that program, and hence I say that we continue to do that work, and maybe Peggy can give it a little bit of flavor so as to close the gap, perhaps where we may not have satisfactorily answered the question earlier. Peggy?
Yeah, thank you, Jesse. I think you summarized it correctly. I think, Honorable Paulson, all those stations you have counted now, I did indicate that Matimba, the Tabo, Kendall are now in compliance. What we also looking, the issue of emission is twofold. There's also the projects for long term in terms of upgrading to deal with emission reduction. That's why I also said our outages are a bit longer, because we are dealing with the issue of upgrading and putting some technologies to put the units at different stations to the new compliance levels as well. So those are ongoing things. It's not going to be saying we are done now. It's something that we need to redo. It's like routine maintenance and those abnormal maintenance on the refurbishment projects. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. And sorry if I missed it earlier. The copper recycling plant is now behind schedule and missed targets for 2 consecutive quarters. Quarter one, it missed the target because of the business case approval. Quarter two, missed the target because of finalizing the procurement process. So what immediate high-level accountability measures are being implemented beyond simply noting that there is no achievement in order to expedite the business case approval and construction, which is crucial for long-term sustainability goals? Thank you.
Honorable member, we did indicate that some of the challenges, particularly when we're finalizing the business case, were outside of Eskom's control, because we had to get some regulatory approvals for stripping the copper. But the team has really tried to bring it on board to close to on procurement process now, which has caused the delay. So we cannot at this point in time pinpoint specific consequence or disciplinary or whatever measures for the delay on a particular individual, but noting that it has been outside of the control, but the team has tried to bring it back to implementation, but we may not meet the milestones that were set for this particular financial year. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Chair. That's all from me. Chair?
Thank you. It's not easy to unmute, honorable members. The nails are too long, so I'm struggling. So thank you very much. Not that I am out of the meeting, I am in. Honorable Tring.
Thank
followed
you.
by Honorable Nchabeleng.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I just have one additional question that I wasn't able to put forward, and this is with regards to the target set by NTCSA for the next decade. NTCSA's target for the next decade is some 14,500 kilometers of new high voltage transmission lines. That equates to 1,450 kilometers per annum and 362 kilometers per quarter, 122 kilometers of transmission lines per month. Page 5 of the presentation shows a target of some 116 kilometers per quarter, which is way below the 362 kilometers per quarter that is required. It's essentially a shortfall of some 1,000 kilometers of transmission lines per annum by my calculations. So the question then is, how is this shortfall going to be drawn back? And does NTCSA have the capacity to actually meet their target of 14,500 kilometers of transmission, high voltage transmission lines over the next decade? Thank you, Chair.
Chair, through you, Andrew is on the line, but I can assist him. Perhaps we'll save honorable member some time for follow-up questions. The target is 14,000 so kilometers indeed over a 10-year period. It is not linear. That volume of new lines constructed is not on a linear basis, and it is not linear because we came from a point of building very low. I mean, at some point we hit as low as 100 kilometers per annum. So to set up the value chain systems in terms of permitting, to get projects to be ready for that, and to get the supply chain to be ready means that you're going to have a ramp up. And so this is the reason why for the first 5 years, 2025 to 2029, the target that needs to be met is 5044 kilometers. And from 2030 to 2034 is 9450 kilometers. So you can see that there's a gradual build and then acceleration towards the latter part. What becomes important for us to keep an eye on is that we stay along that build-up line. And hence, you'll see that for the year under review, the year-end projection is 423. This is in comparison to a number of 260 or so we did last year and 180 we did the previous, and next year it ramps up. That's what's very important for us to focus on how that build-up comes in. So the independent transmission projects will be coming into place. That process has been led by National Treasury Ministry together with NTCSA to bring in the private participation, which will also help with the acceleration of the build-up. What the NTCSA team is doing is to focus on the project preparation so that we don't suffer delays as a result of permitting or engineering work that needs to be done upfront for these projects. But it is a build-up, Chair, that we have to monitor how this shapes out in the earlier years. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Singh. Honorable Prim, Honorable Nchabeling.
Thanks, Chair, and for the opportunity to come back for re-questions. I see I still have about 30 minutes, Chair. So I can go to town now. Actually, I think coming back to the question of the repowering, I'm still not satisfied. I think maybe the answer was we were expecting that we would hear good news where we would hear that Komati will be repowered, given that the infrastructure exists, especially the bulk infrastructure. You know, your cooling towers, your existing, power station infrastructure, but retrofitting it or repowering it with battery technology, isn't it moving away from the core focus of what the power plant was about, including the coal infrastructure that existed there with the coal basin in Mpumalanga? Wouldn't it be then wise to go on a Hele level where you use your high efficiency, low emissions technology for repowering Komati? Or if not, taking the same plant, then doing a full scale SMR, retrofit environment for repowering. Wouldn't it be feasible for that rather than going on an experimental level of having a battery Komati as a backup battery power station?
To comment so. Chair, through you, I'll invite Becky Ngumalo to perhaps revisit the response he gave earlier to Mr. Honorable Chabeling's point. Becky.
Thank you, GC, and thanks, Honorable Nchabeling. I think you speak about the technology called the high efficiency, low emissions. I think that is part of the project, but you pay me to Komati. We've got units that are already off now at Hendrina, for an example. So we are looking at the whole portfolio. So definitely we are doing the high efficiency, low emission projects, demonstrations. And then once we have done with that, the plan is to roll it out across the fleet. And also to say, because Komati is also in the midst between Hendrina and Komati, there is like 10 kilometers. So we're looking at that corridor there to use the land between the two stations to roll out, because you will find that around Komati there is not enough suitable space for the SMR as well because of the mining around the station. So, but where the issues around that whole vicinity, that's the approach we are taking. So definitely we are looking at all this technology. Like I said, apart from Hele and batteries, there is other technologies that we will be deploying at Komati, which is called long duration storage technologies as well. So yeah, I think now we're quite comfortable, Chair. Once we have been through the approvals, and then we can come and share to the committee maybe in the next quarter what have we now done as well. But the Hele is definitely part of the stations. We've got 3 stations where we will be demonstrating on. And then Komati is part of the mix as well with other technologies that we are rolling out in that space. Chair. Thanks.
That's great news, actually, to hear that. That is the plan. Can we get an expanded view of what is this establishment of the renewable energy business that Eskom is attempting to go into? What are we talking about in terms of going into the renewable energy business? Are you going to be setting up your own power producing, renewable energy plants in order to supplement what you're doing, or are we going to be looking at rooftop technology solutions? What are we talking about in terms of this business particularly?
Honorable Chamberlain, the integrated resource plan was formally approved about a month ago. In it, it shows an increasing proportion of within the energy mix for the country. And our position has been very clear that Eskom also has the right to participate in the growth of the energy supply, and that growth is predicated dominantly by renewables. Of course, it also includes nuclear, as was shared over the weekend, nuclear, gas, and renewables in the main. So for us to execute and grow our proportion of renewables, and by the way, we already have renewables, for us to grow that portfolio significantly under the current market conditions, we have created this Eskom Green entity to enable us to do 2 things: to move with speed, to be able to participate in partnership with others, to shield our balance sheet, because we're going to go back to the level of debt that we used to have before, but also to seek partners who can technically enhance our own capabilities to be competitive in that space. So this is why Eskom Green will be, the vehicle that drives this aspect. It is to ensure that our overall component of renewables that responds to the growth in renewable component of the energy mix of the country is driven in a much more slicker way. That's the real thinking behind it. We have shared this with the committee a few times, and we are really now at the last points of getting the necessary governance alignments, which will allow us to spell out the details of how it will work. But in it, we go out of our way to ensure that we do not create debt levels that will again paralyze the organization going forward.
Yeah, thanks on that one. Now, let's talk about the financial side of it, Jesse, with regards to Eskom. You have IPPs right now that are actually being paid a proportional percentage of Eskom's revenue, but are not generating equivalent revenues in respect to electricity generation that is transmitted and that is actually sold to the end customer. What proportional percentage of your revenue is currently going towards the payment of IPPs, irrespective of whether you're using the electricity or not?
Honorable Ntshabeleng, in terms of the exact percentage, we can get back to you, but to your point, if we look at the average IPP costs that we are paying to the IPPs, appreciating, we know in the earlier bid windows, those renewable costs were around 4 rand per kilowatt hour. In the later windows, it's come down. But in total, because some of these legacy projects still exist, that is on average around 210 cents per kilowatt hour, which effectively says we're paying 210 cents per kilowatt hour for those IPPs. Appreciating there's an element of the returns in that number, so the full cost. Whereas from an Eskom perspective, if we look at our overall price, including transmission and distribution, that currently as a total price from an Eskom perspective is sitting at 2.20, of which 70% is the generation overall price. So you're looking at generation production costs of around 80 cents per kilowatt. If you add in the returns component, that takes it up maybe to about some 140 or so, which is far cheaper than the overall portfolio of the IPPs. So I think that's the question that you're asking, that you look at that cost compared to the energy we're getting, appreciating that the load factors on renewables are sitting at about, what, 33%, somewhere there, 30 to 35%. That unit cost is far greater than what overall Eskom is producing at. But we can get the exact numbers and percentages and share with the committee on this out.
So you would agree with me, CFO, when I say that IPPs are actually a loss to Eskom?
So what happens in terms, Honorable Nchabileng, in terms of the regulatory mechanism, that amount that is the IPPs, NERSA does allow us to recover the full amount. So, if in a year it's a total of, let's say, 50 billion, we are allowed to recover that from the consumer. But what it does do in the overall price of electricity, while you're dealing with the affordability and you look at must remain for Eskom, it puts pressure on what Eskom gets in the overall price. But there is the mechanism in terms of the regulatory clearing account. If the IPPs underproduce in a year compared to the 50 billion, let's say the production is only for 40 billion, that is then given back to the consumer in a subsequent RCA. If they oversupply compared to the 50 billion, call it 52 billion, we're allowed to recover that. But all I'm saying is they are first in the queue in terms of that recovery. And because it's at a higher overall price, it does put what Eskom can recover from the consumer while you're balancing the total price to the consumer.
No, CFO, you're not answering. I'm saying it's a loss to Eskom or it's not a loss to Eskom. Is it a loss to Eskom, or we're looking at a scenario? Because I know you don't want to be obvious about the facts, but in this environment, we have to spell apples for apples and tomatoes for tomatoes. Eskom currently uses consumers to subsidize, and actually consumers are taxed in this case, in order to subsidize the onboarding of renewable energy in the form of IPPs, because they are not creating your revenue that you're able to actually can charge for. As a result, they are being subsidized by consumers. So it is a loss to Eskom. Would you agree with me when I say that, say?
Honorable Nchabileng, we are allowed to recover it, whatever we pay to the IPPs. We don't make any margins on it. So from a regulatory mechanism, cash flow wise, Eskom is neutral in how the regulatory mechanism works. But there's no margins for Eskom in terms of IPPs.
Mr. Nchabileng, your 10 minutes, second round follow-ups is finished.
Thank you so much, Secretary. And thank you so much, the executives, for the inputs. It's really appreciated.
Thank you, Honorable Nchabileng. And then I think...
Mr. Bapti's hand is raised, Chair.
Okay. Honorable Bapti.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I'd just like to get some clarification around the slow performance on digitalizing the procurement process and whether this is linked to the RPP office. And if we could have a little bit more clarity, we are under target there and also predicting to be under target by year end. So if we could just unpack the reasons behind the slowness in the procurement process being digitalized.
What is the question, Honorable Bapti?
Chair, I'm looking for an explanation as to why the digitalization process for procurement is behind target substantially, and whether or not it is linked to the formation of the RPP or the formalization of the RPP office.
Okay.
Chair,
CEO?
thank you very much. We have our Chief Technology and Information Officer, Len de Villiers. Len, if you could just perhaps address the honourable member's question then.
Yeah, he is.
So, Chair, thank you, honourable members. Chair, could I just get clarity on the exact ask, please, if you don't mind?
The digitalization of the procurement process is quite far behind target, doesn't appear to be making the progress that we would like to see.
Right.
And my question is what's causing that? What's the main cause? And is it in any way linked to the formalization of the RPP office?
Right. So, honourable members, we are in the process right now of looking at the procurement system and processes. We have identified several improvements that we are working on, but we've also discovered that we would have to redo some of the components of the procurement process, and we are embarking on a digital procurement process to look at procurement systems and opportunities in the market that would assist us with a digital procurement solution. The business requirements for such a digital procurement system has been assembled and completed. We have completed the business case, therefore, and the BRS has been signed off. We are now going to market in December with an RFP to assist us with concluding on the final solution for a digital procurement solution. And we hope to complete the analysis for a new system by January 2026, and then select the bidder to help us with the deployment of a digital procurement system, which will cover all the digital procurement processes from the start of the process right to the completion of the PR and the execution of such orders.
Are you covered, Honorable Bapti?
Yes, Chair, but I just want to know whether there was any linkage between that process and the formalization of the RPP office.
No link, Honourable Bapti. Is a completely Eskom-driven process.
Thank you.
Okay. Seemingly there are no more hands. Then it means we are done with Eskom.
There's one more hand. One last question.
From?
Myself, Crown Prince Adeline Tabele.
Yeah, super. But let's give you, because there's still time.
There's still time to. Thank you so much for indulgence. I think maybe the last question really is to ask about, I've noticed that there's a huge growing trend of seeing developments around, and this is even quite scary. There's some houses that are now even built around or beneath pylon structures. Is this acceptable? What is the standard rule for a pylon line with regards to development around it? Because now we're seeing that malls they are building developments, they are building housing units, and now there is even what do you call it, illegal settlements, as well as informal settlements cropping up around pylon land and land area. Is this something that is, safe first to start with? And is it something that is Eskom allowed? And what is the regulatory rule around that pylon land that Eskom? I know it might be a way, it might be some kind of an arrangement to partially owning or leasing the land. But is it an acceptable practice that that land can be occupied underneath a pylon?
Yeah, through you, let me invite Andrew from NTCSA to provide some feedback to the honourable members' questions.
Thank you, Honourable Member, and once again, good morning to the Chairperson. Yes, this is certainly
Morning.
thank you. This certainly is a growing trend and is of concern. It is holding up certain of our projects, and it does require some innovative solutions in certain cases to address this. Unfortunately, sometimes the solutions which we come up with inadvertently create further problems. So in one particular instance, alternative accommodation has been committed and provided to rehouse effectively squatters underneath a particular line. But that is unfortunately leads to potential risk that there'll be other settlements underlines simply once again to receive formal housing from NCCSA or Eskom elsewhere. There is, in addition to holding up the construction and development of this particular line that I'm referring to, I think it's just generally a very unsafe practice for any housing development or commercial development to set up under a transmission line. At the end of the day, these are very potentially very dangerous networks from a power system point of view, and from a fire point of view. And if there was to be any sort of collapse, there would certainly be fatalities. So this is a matter that is certainly one that is frustration to ourselves, and it's in a particular case that I'm referring to. It's an ongoing matter to work with the informal community to relocate them. So yeah, we don't have the answer, but we are working hard on it. Thank you.
Thank you. No other hand, Secretary? From my gadget, I don't see any.
No, Chair. Nothing.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much, Eskom. It doesn't mean that we are done. We can make a follow-up in terms of written questions via the Secretary, and you can also respond via the Secretary. It's not a done deal, but at least so far so good for today. We are done, and we really appreciate for your presence and your presentation. Thanks ever so much. You are excused.
Thank you, Chair.
Members, we appreciate your engagement. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, Chair.
and bye and goodbye.
Members must just stay behind, Chair.
Can we get into the in-committee meetings? In-committee meeting and deal with the in-committee matters. Will you please, Secretary, flight the minutes?
For the Chair, it's Silas.
Oh, Silas?
Sorry, Chair, to do this to you. Through you, can we be excused as well, the department?
Yes. Oh, the department is with us. I'm sorry for that. You are excused. And
Thank
we
you, Chair.
also appreciate your presence, much as that we understand that you have also to do other work. Thank you very
Anytime,
much.
Chair. Thank you.
Yes. Bye. Bye. Secretary, lead us in the minutes. Which date is it?
Thank you, Chair. These are the minutes of last week, Wednesday, the 12th of November, where we were briefed by, excuse me, the Department of Electricity and Energy on their second quarterly performance report for 25-26. Also, an update by the Department of Electricity and Energy relating to the performance of all the entities for the first and second quarter of 25-26. And then consideration and adoption of the minutes of 4 and 5 November, Chair. So there's the attendance by committee members, parliamentary staff, opening remarks, the presentations, 2 presentations and their focus. And then remarks by the Deputy Minister of Electricity and Energy, Honorable S. Graham Mare. And then the discussions during that meeting. Then the consideration and adoption of the minutes of 4 and 5 November. And then the resolutions, Chair. These resolutions has been forwarded to the department to provide written responses, Chair. And then adjournment. Thank you, Chair. Those are the minutes of Wednesday, 12 November.
Honorable members, can I get a hand showing and telling us that was the true reflection of the minute?
The Milam's hand is raised, Chair.
Honorable Milam?
I propose the adoption of the minutes.
Honorable Milam adopts the minutes as a true reflection.
Mr.
Any
Nkosi's hand is raised.
Seconder, Honorable Nkosi?
I second the minutes as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Minutes have been adopted and seconded. Any other item, Secretary, or announcement?
Yeah, just to indicate, Chair, that we also have a virtual meeting, energy stakeholder engagement, actually, on the municipal electricity distribution industry. This coming Friday, starting at 9, Chair, where we'll be briefed by the Department of Electricity and Energy, Eskom, COCTA, and SALGA. I've received the presentation of SALGA. I've sent it through to members already. So we are awaiting the presentations of the other entities, Chair. Then just to indicate as well, Friday's meeting is part 1. Then part 2 on the energy stakeholder engagement on the EDI is next week, Wednesday, the 26th of November. Then we'll continue. We've included NERSA, National Treasury, and the Presidency. Members will recall I indicated last week that we are awaiting a correspondence or an invite from the PC on Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs for a meeting on Tuesday, the 25th, dealing with the municipal debt. I'm still awaiting the correspondence, Chair. I'll follow up with my counterpart responsible for PC on COCTA, and then I'll revert, Chair. So those are the announcements, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Secretary. And what about the 28th? A reminder?
Yeah, the 28th, Friday the 28th, the meeting with the PC on trade and industry and competition, Chair. Yeah, those details I will forward to members as well. The likelihood is that the meeting will be physical in Parliament, Chair. About 5 members confirmed their attendance. So yeah, that's where we are with that meeting, Chair. So the details of the venue I will forward to members in due time, Chair.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank you
Chair.
very much, Secretary. Those are the issues and matters that needs also to be considered and also keep in mind for the meetings. But I know Secretary is always reminding us in terms of those meetings in a group. So we hope that, in fact, he will do the same by reminding us on those meetings. But let's lock and book those dates. Thanks ever so much, honorable members. I really appreciate your attendance, knowing that at least when it's towards the end of the year, there's a lot that confronts us. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank
Have a good day.
you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Super. Thank you. Bye.
Recording stopped.